Hey everybody, it's Canadian music in the 80s, 90s, and more. Got a special show today. I'm glad to welcome back Darren MacPherson, host of the Saturday Night Hoedown on CFCY here in Charlottetown. I wanted to talk about Christmas music, which explains the goofy hat. I guess, I don't know, do you know much about the origins of Christmas music? I would assume it started with like hymns in church.
I would say Christmas carols
Yeah.
started that whole thing with, hymns in church, and it kind of expanded out as Christmas became more generalized, or people kind of moved away from the church a little
Right.
bit as society has tended to a little bit. But I mean, now you have Christmas carols, you have Christmas songs, and then you kind of have a mix of everything, I would say, yeah.
Everybody makes a Christmas album. Would you think maybe the biggest commercial popularization might have started with White Christmas by Bing Crosby? Would that be?
Oh, absolutely. Of course, that was a movie too, right?
Yeah.
So it became a massive hit in theaters, and then he had a number one hit song that was on the charts forever, and then keeps coming back, by the way, every year. I don't know if you've ever followed that, Alan, but there's a ton of tunes that just disappear off the charts, and then every December 1st, they roll back through and make another appearance. Like the first one that comes to mind for me is Wham! With Last Christmas.
Right.
Every year it keeps fighting its way. Of course, Mariah is the little meme joke that everybody carries on about, but yeah.
But then everybody did Christmas music, I guess. I mean, I guess the first one I really remember hearing as a kid, popularization would have been this one.
Yes, absolutely.
Bobby Helms' Jingle Bell Rock would have been a really popular one, and I guess might have come out at the same time, around the same area as Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, maybe.
It's funny you mention those two, because I think about, those standards, those classic, "O Come All Ye Faithful" kind of Christmas carols.
Right.
And then people started doing things like Bobby Helms was doing, and Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, of course. That was Bill Haley, right? Was it?
Brenda Lee was.
Brenda Lee did the, yeah. So anyway, it's funny because those were new tunes when these albums came out. Nobody knew them. Now they're standards.
Right.
And everybody that came along after them, they would have their own album, which would have, their version of Silent Night on it, and Holly Jolly Christmas, or whatever the case may be. And then they'd always throw a couple of their own originals in there in hopes that maybe it would stick and be their Jingle Bell Rock. And it has happened. I mean, I think about, of course, you know me, Alan, I'm kind of stuck in the country music world, but Dolly and Kenny did a Christmas album back in the, I want to say, early 80s. And there's some tried and true tunes on those albums, like With Bells On, Hard Candy Christmas. Those are standards in my mind and in my world now. But yeah, they're not those ones that you heard way back when, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or something.
But a lot of country musicians going back to the 50s and 60s did a lot of Christmas music, like who would come to mind to me? I guess Gene Autry doing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, who's probably the first well-known version of that
Absolutely.
song.
Now I know, and the King walked the line, but Elvis was country, he was rock and roll, and he had a few huge Christmas songs. So
Blue Christmas is
Blue
always
Christmas,
a staple
absolutely.
every year.
Yes.
And stuff like that. Let's go through some of my... Of course, you can't not talk about this fella.
I know he's your guy.
Well, he's the Islands guy.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Well, and it's funny, again, I'll have to admit, full disclosure, I wasn't aware that Stompin' Tom had done a Christmas song, but to your point 3 or 4 minutes ago, I guess everybody's done one at some point in their career.
yeah, I guess so. And then I'm actually into the comedy side of Christmas, and of course, you always see this one popping around this time of year too. Their version of 12 Days of Christmas is quite popular.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. And it's funny, for me, on the Hoedown, of course, we're all requests. I don't really know, because I get requests, even I had a request for that last week, and I don't know, is it like, where does it fall inside the world of Hoedown fanship? Yeah. I want to play it, and I probably will play it at some point, and then just hope I don't get my knuckles wrapped.
Yeah, I hope not. I was talking to you just before we started talking. This probably makes me feel Christmas every year. Not just the TV special, but the music on this. It's not country, I know it's jazz, a trio, but it really does give you a Christmas feeling when you hear this played.
The second you start to hear those couple of notes on the piano, you know exactly what you're listening to.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, without a doubt, a standard when we talk about standards in the world of Christmas.
And it's probably one of the most popular Christmas TV specials that airs yearly, right up there with Rudolph. And
I would say so.
Frosty.
I would say so.
I guess this would be the first one I remember of my generation in the 80s of artists in my generation doing Christmas songs, because I'd never really heard it up until, I mean, the 70s artists did it, like Boney M had popular Christmas stuff. But I mean, the Pointer Sisters, the Eurythmics, Whitney Houston. Well, Bruce Springsteen had his version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town on every year, but he did another one. Bryan Adams, John Cougar Mellencamp.
When they did this series of albums, it was it almost validated that notion of having a Christmas song out there, because I remember for a while there, it was like, I hate to say this, but it was like, towards the end of your career, maybe if you were trying to push a few more album sales, you'd put out a Christmas album. But this is like, the cool acts were doing this. Yeah. Everybody that was on this album, they were cool at the time and continued to as they did, future versions of it. So that made it, a little bit more legitimized.
Yeah, and it has that one, because of my t-shirt, Die Hard, Run DMC's was in the movie, and he said, don't you have any Christmas music? This is Christmas music.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It's classic.
This is actually one of my favorite newer ones. Sarah McLachlan did a great Christmas album. She didn't call it a Christmas title. It was more of a winter thing, but there's some really classics on here. She does a really good version of Christmas Time Is Here from the Peanuts. Song for a Winter's Night, the Gordon Lightfoot classic, which I'm sure you'll get some requests for between now and the 25th.
Absolutely.
But I mean, she does all the standards, and she does a really good job of them. But I mean, everybody, like you said, everybody does do a Christmas album nowadays. But I guess it's, you pick and choose what you like the best. Is there any of what are your favorites?
Well, and I mentioned this off air, but like Bare Naked Ladies and Sarah McLachlan did an awesome tune together back in the day. They did a duet, I guess you could say, a group and an artist together. I love hearing that from Canadian artists.
Right.
Bare Naked Ladies also did a tune that they wrote called Green Christmas. That was really good too. So yeah, I mean, I love hearing those acts try to make their own tunes. And, kind of like we were talking about as well, you have your standards, you have songs that come out afterwards that artists maybe release on their own for the very first time, and they hope desperately that it becomes a hit, and then it kind of gets that yearly play. And it has happened. It happens all the time. You hear it. Like I said, I mentioned Wham! And Last Christmas. When that came out in '84 or something like that, I mean, it was just a Christmas song. Now it's like a standard. You hear it every time. Paul McCartney in Wonderful Christmas Time, same kind of thing, These songs, when they were released, the guys kind of probably hoped that they were going to be hits, and now they become a yearly play.
And I find movies really start bringing songs out too. Like the Christmas Vacation used the Ray Charles song "Christmas Time Is Here," and that's really become a staple now.
100%. I mean, I didn't know that song before National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Now, on one of my streaming playlists where, you create your own, Ray Charles is definitely on there. Yeah. I would never have dreamed of putting that together without that tune, because it's become a standard.
I have songs that I don't think are Christmas songs, but maybe could be, like A Long December by Counting Crows. I might include that in there. I don't know if you've ever heard Alison Krauss and Natalie McMaster do Get Me Through December.
I don't know that one, no.
It's a beautiful fiddle song that she did. I include that in my Christmas playlist as well.
Merle Haggard has a tune called If We Make It Through December. Right. I mean, that could probably be in there too, truthfully.
And the one that I have to mention, because it's probably my favorite Christmas song, The Pogues and The Fairy Tale of New York.
One of my absolute favorites. Yeah. Absolute favorites. Yep.
I don't know if that's something you would get away with playing on the air here.
No. But again, that's one of the cool things about artists doing their own stuff for Christmas is, it starts to kind of wave through the lines of what's rock and roll, what's country, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And it's just playing Christmas songs. But it definitely goes on my streaming list. Probably not going to make it onto the Hoedown under most circumstances. But what a great tune. Absolutely.
One thing I like about the Christmas, we were talking about some stations are playing 24 hours of Christmas music, and you either like it or you don't. There's probably a fine line between both. But what I think is great is, isn't it great to hear Bing Crosby on the radio again?
It is great to hear those, tried and true I think you hear some Frank Sinatra out there too. That
Nat King Cole
would be unheard of in the middle of April. But it's so cool to have it here around December. It's so great.
Isn't it great to hear those voices on the radio again? I think it is anyway, of the classic stuff. Because some people I know are more into those than the remakes of those.
Absolutely, and those guys were masters at the time. And every year around this time of year, you get a chance to prove it again. You know, hearing a Bing Crosby or that reminds me. We talked about the standards getting crossed over. Bowie and Bing Crosby.
Oh yeah,
what a great tune that is! And you get to hear it this time of year, and it's kind of special that way.
Well, I remember Much Music actually used to play quite a few Christmas videos back in the 80s, and that would have been one of them they played.
That most certainly would have been one of them.
And the audio portion of that gets played on the radio.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Even Twisted Sister made a Christmas album.
I don't think I knew that. That's awesome. I don't think I knew that at all. That's great.
I don't think you can play on the Hoedown.
No, that's all right.
But I mean, I think the Ramones did a Christmas song at one time.
Yeah.
It's just, like, everybody has done it. But I mean, I guess it all started with, I would say it all started with church and religious carols and hymns, maybe.
100%. And then, it kind of got out in the streets and artists started putting their stuff out. Like you say, Bobby Helms probably led the way on that, in those artists that started putting something out that had a more contemporary sound.
Yeah, Home Alone, the music from this movie always gets me in a Christmas mood.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you.
No, absolutely. And again, one of the fun things about when they put soundtracks together for Christmas movies is they go and they dig, like we were talking about Lampoons.
Yeah.
They find these old gems that maybe didn't get a whole lot of notice at the time, or maybe they did, but they reintroduce them to a new group of fans, and that's fantastic. I absolutely love when that happens.
Yeah, there's stuff on here. You could play Alan Jackson, Holly Jolly Christmas.
We do. I think I played that last week.
You were talking about right there.
Christmas all over again. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what are your favorite Christmas movies or TV specials? Do you have any favorites?
Oh, you got me, Alan. You know what? You have the standalones like your Elf. Trying to think of what else A Christmas Story is one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah.
There's no whole lot of music in that one, but boy, oh boy, it's a standard in my house for sure.
And the Burl Ives connection to Rudolph.
Yes.
Rudolph special.
Absolutely.
Being the snowman and the narrator.
Yeah, that's a classic.
I mean, you could probably play on the Hoedown.
And I'm sure we have in the past. There's no two ways about it. Those ones, like, even your Frank Sinatra or whatever the case may be, they cross over well enough that it's nice and safe to play a Burl Ives or a Frank Sinatra for sure.
Thanks for joining me about Christmas music.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
A lot of fun.
Last minute, but I appreciate it.
It's great.
It's nice to have somewhat of an expert who works in the business who plays this music every year.
Well, I don't have the albums like you do, Alan, but that's pretty cool. Happy holidays for sure.
No worries. Thanks a lot.
Merry
Have a good Christmas, sir.
You too.
Appreciate it.